My name is Massiel. I grew up in Canada, in Montreal specifically. I went to McGill University. I studied chemical engineering. And right after school, a Schlumberger, which is now called SLB, was at the career fair. And they sold me the dream of being a wireline field engineer. I had no idea what it was, but loved my field career. I was in the field for 5.5 years. And then I went to a business, sales, and commercial role over the last 5 years. So almost 10 years in May of my career since I graduated, 5 years in the field, 5 years in the office. I have a little bit of both in case anybody has any questions on the differences. And I'll let Jamie introduce herself, and then we can talk about the podcast after.
No, thank you, Massiel. And thank y'all. Just to mirror what Massiel said, we're very excited to be speaking with y'all. We really like to educate and inspire those that are coming into the industry or even thinking about coming into the industry. Means a lot to us to help with the next generation. And so we're just really happy to share and answer any questions today that anyone might have. And for me, my story is a little bit different, which is what has brought the uniqueness really to flipping the barrel, and also to what challenges Massiel and I have both encountered throughout our careers. I born and raised in Texas, so I've always been in North America, always been around Houston. I never really traveled out much besides for vacations, which is very different than Massiel, who moved all around. I studied marketing and business communication at Sam Houston State University, where I got a full ride volleyball scholarship. So I played sports in school. I grew up very big into sports, as many of you might know or might not know. In Texas, like, that's a big thing. I sometimes feel like sports are before education in some parts of Texas. But so I went to Sam Houston State. I had no understanding of engineering design, or anything like that. I was just really good in talking with people and building relationships. So I always knew I wanted to be in sales. And then I got the opportunity. I actually posted my resume on RigZone. And RigZone back then was just starting. It wasn't near as big as it is today. And a Schlumberger manager had found my resume there and contacted me. And that was the start of my career in oil and gas. So I started in the field with Schlumberger, now SLB, in drill bits. And it was one of those introductions where you start and without even knowing it, the first 3 months is a training course. And if you fail one test, then you're out. And so I learned engineering very quickly. Prior to that, I wasn't very good in math, and I all of a sudden became, good enough. And that really, my career really grew after that. Schlumberger gave me a lot of opportunity to start from the field. I was in the field in South Texas for about 6 months, and then I went straight into technical sales. And I've been in sales ever since, working in different business lines and working for smaller and mid-sized companies. So I started at Schlumberger and then went to a mid-size or a smaller company, and then a mid-size, and then now I'm back at a large company. I work for Baker Hughes today as a global account director for Air Products, which is an industrial gas company. But that is what's the beauty of the energy space, is the opportunities are broad. So and you will see that in both Massiel and I's backgrounds and career journeys.
This is like pretty interesting and inspiring, your whole journeys. And I think this leads us to the next questions. What inspired you guys to start the Flipping the Barrel podcast, and what do you hope to achieve with it?
Yes, so how we started it was very spontaneous. How Jamie and I met, let's start there. So I had just moved to Houston. I was new, and of course this is a very male-dominated industry, so I didn't know many other females, especially my age, that we could connect with, right? It's more difficult to find someone like you. And I got a message from Jamie's husband, Jason, on Instagram in a DM, because I post a lot of things about oil field. And so I posted a picture of a salad actually from a small restaurant in Houston, and he commented on the salad and knew exactly what the restaurant was, which I thought was weird. And he just said, "You need to meet my wife. You will get along. You have a lot of things in common." And of course, I thought this was weird message as well from a guy on Instagram. But I was like, sure, I would like to meet your wife. I didn't have a lot of friends in Houston, and so I was really open to any opportunity to meet anybody. And so I took his advice. And Jamie always likes to say her side of the story, because she found it weird as well that her husband was sending me a message on Instagram.
Yeah, this is where we everybody always gets a kick out of it. But so my husband then contacts me and tells me that I need to meet Massiel. And of course, I didn't follow her. I didn't have her Instagram. And we're all here in the day and age of Instagram, so everybody knows what all goes on Instagram. And so I was just like, okay, this is very odd, but I went to her Instagram. I saw that it was all oil field related stuff. And I was like, oh, wow, this is kind of cool. Okay, I'll take you up on it. And if you knew my husband, you would know that he's like the most like innocent person in everything that he does. And although for a lot of people, it comes off really weird, he truly just wanted us to meet. And he was right. So we could call him a matchmaker. After that, Massiel and I had went out and we decided to meet at Bella Green, which is the place where she was eating at and the place where him and I used to go all the time. And this will be 4 years ago this September that her and I had met. And when we met, we literally hit it off immediately. I think we spent about 3 hours together and we just were like, wow, it was such an incredible experience to meet each other. And it was one thing that really showed us like the benefit of social media, the positive side of what social media could bring together. Because at the end of the day, Massiel and I had never crossed paths, even though we were in the same industry. I don't know if we would have ever met otherwise. And we not only met, but we became best friends. And then we developed what everybody knows today is Flipping the Barrel. But it didn't start out that way. We only knew each other for, I would say, about a month time. And I had invited her over to my house. Since she has really no family in Houston, it was like the perfect opportunity to invite her over for, I think it's either 4th of July or one of those holidays. And she came over and our husbands met. And while we were all talking, they were like, man, y'all should do something together. And, we ran through different ideas of like, let's start a wireline company. And then we were like, well, that's really capital intensive. So probably not the best idea. And then because we both love to talk and meet people, they were like, why don't y'all do a podcast? And we had no idea how to start a podcast or what to do. We just knew that we both had a love for the industry. We both loved the careers that it gave us as women in the energy space and the opportunity that we were provided and the men that supported us along the way. We felt like all those things were very important. And we felt that the industry alone doesn't have a very good positive image. And we, as working inside the energy space, have never felt that negativity. We love what we do and we love what energy provides to the world. And we wanted to showcase that and share it and shine a light on the industry through interviewing those who had been in the space and had grown their career there. And so that was really the birth of Flipping the Barrel, was that day around the table. And then we went and bought equipment. And then we started asking people to please come on. And we started with just our friends, our mentors, and those who we know would accept to share their story and not be afraid to speak on, a platform that's global. And that was really the beginning stages of Flipping the Barrel.
And you mentioned earlier that this is a male-dominated industry. So how can we encourage and motivate more women and young people to pursue careers in the energy sector?
That's a great question. It's all about what each of us individually can do to contribute. And I think it goes a long way with just being, you represent a specific look, gender, idea, thoughts, university, literally like anything that somebody that you have no idea will look at you and say, I see myself in that person. And because they are in the energy industry or because they have a great career, I also want to be part of it. So really it's in everybody's duty to make sure you talk about the industry, talk about your career, share as much as you can with the younger generation, to inspire them. Because really sometimes we think we're not inspiring anybody, but just you being in a role or you being in a specific degree, you're going to inspire someone way younger that's looking up to you. And so how we can really make a movement to have more women, A, in the industry, and 2, in STEM, I think really starts at a very young age. So it's what you teach your children. There's still a lot of separation between what girls can do or guys can do, from the toys, from the books, from the movies. So I really think it's educating at a very young level. And if you can go and speak at a high school, or if you can go and speak at a elementary and share your career or you in STEM, that goes a very long way. That's how we're really going to change. And then I think, we've done a good job over the last years. There's a good majority of, 30 to 50% of women now graduating from STEM roles in universities. And so we've done a good job at showcasing that they can have a good career. Now, what we need to do is shine a positive light towards the energy industry, because it does have a very negative image. If you didn't grow up with, family members in the oil and gas industry, it's very rare that you want to come into this industry, because it looks just like dark and bad, and we're polluting the world and we are the bad people. That's how the younger generation sees us, unfortunately. When in reality, we power the world and we need oil and gas, and anything that you wear, your glasses, the plastic, just anything that you use on the day to day, how you got to school today, how you got to the office, you're taking a car, you're using fuel. And so I think sometimes it's easy to forget how important the industry is. So it's up to all of us. And that's what we want to do with Flipping the Barrel, is showcase the importance of the industry. But also we know that there's going to be a need of a change to help our planet and to have a more balanced planet and to take care of the world. We all agree with that. But I think being in the energy industry, or oil and gas core industry, this is where all the change is going to happen for carbon capture, for new energies. This is where all of the innovation is going to come out of. And so we always like to tell the students or younger generations that if you want to solve the world problems of carbon capture and environmental issues, sustainability, come to the energy industry, because this is where the innovation will happen. And so I think it's really just showcasing what you can do in the industry. And that's how we're going to get more women to come as well.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of the energy industry, how do you see it evolving in the future? And what opportunities will be available for women and minorities?
This is the space to be in. We've said it in the beginning, and we really, really mean it. We really want people to understand that the opportunity here is massive. So it's everywhere between your traditional oil and gas. It's never going to go away. We cannot replace the plastic and what we do today with anything else. And yeah, there might be some solutions that are coming, not near term, but maybe in the future. But there's not today a reliable source of energy like what oil or natural gas produces. And we've seen that with the big movement in LNG that's been happening to support that, and just the big movement in natural gas in general. So it's going to be a mix. And with that said, the opportunities are your traditional oil and gas, who will always need that. But because of that, you get to learn that space and grow into hydrogen, CCUS, carbon capture, what's going on with the solar. There's so many different opportunities. And if you notice, your big companies like your IOCs, and then also your Baker Hugheses, your SLBs, the majority of those companies that run oilfield service now have an energy side of the business. And this energy transition side of the business really supports all those functions. And so not only do you have an opportunity to learn traditional oil and gas, but you have an opportunity to grow and become an expert in spaces where nobody's really an expert just yet, because it's just now on the cusp of being something big. I'll give you an example. The last 10 years, I've been in traditional oil and gas. I did drilling, completions. I know everything from the wellhead down. And then I got an opportunity to work for Air Products, which is an industrial gas company, which I'm working now on hydrogen, for Baker Hughes, which is an oil and gas service company. That is what other space? I can't think of any other space or any other industry where you can have that vast of knowledge and opportunity and change. So what you'll find when you start a career is that within 2 to 3 years, you start to get kind of monotonous in your role maybe, and you want to change. Well, in the energy space, you get that opportunity. And I had seen, compared to my counterparts in university that didn't go into energy, I'd seen a huge progression with my career on different steps and different opportunities, whereas they stay in one role for a very, very long time, because there's just not that much. You have to change complete companies, or you have to change complete industries to learn something new. Where in oil and gas, we're always evolving. And like Massiel had mentioned, we understand that we need to do things cleaner and better, and we're all on board on that. And so we're all progressing and learning that as we go. And this is the space where you can come in and you can have that impact, and we can use your knowledge and your new insight because you're new to the energy space. And companies are really thriving off that, and they're really utilizing communication from the younger ones coming in on really how can we change and what's important. So I think that brings so much opportunity, especially for minorities, as there's a huge push to just make sure that we're inclusive And the energy space is really the one that's pushing that the most. And we are very diverse. I mean, we are global. People use power all over the world. And so we need everybody to come and work with us in this space so we can also understand, your background, what you bring, and what opportunities we can provide you.
And what advice do you have for organizations looking to create more inclusive and equitable workplaces for women and minorities in the sector?
So I think the most important thing is listening to the employees who are bringing up issues, who are bringing up maybe what they need in their environment in order to thrive, because everybody's needs are going to be different. And if you want to be inclusive and have equitable business, you really need to make sure that everyone's shoe fits properly, not just give everyone shoes. And so I think it's a work in progress. It's not overnight that companies are going to be fixing all of these problems. But I think it starts with just listening to the employees, and ERGs, which are employee resource groups, are super important because it really gives everybody an opportunity to have like a circle of people who think like them, who want change like them all together. And so I think just starting with that is super important for companies to give out those resources that other people might need. I think that would be number one. And I think to bring more women into the industry, a lot of companies are doing this, which is, it's like a positive and a negative with quotas, but it's how you can affect change and make sure it's affected. Now, there's always the talk of, are quotas important or not? I always go back to, how I was hired. Maybe I was a quota, who knows? Maybe they said, hey, out of this university, you need 20 girls. And I was one of them. And maybe they wouldn't have hired me if there wasn't a quota. I don't know. But sometimes in order to break the habit, because people will hire people who look like them. Think about it. I came in field engineer. You think the recruiter who was there grabbing my resume, they're like, this girl's going to survive the field? There's no way. This little girl, she's going to get squashed. She's not going to survive. So there's a lot of the biases that will come in, unconscious biases. And so maybe because of what's being pushed with the industry, they're like, just hire her and then it's up to you to deliver. And so I think it's important for companies to do that and try to bring more diversity and women into the industry. And then really it's up to you to make sure that even though maybe you could have been a diversity hire for whatever reason, you deliver and you show that you deserve to be there. And then the rest will take care of itself. Then as you progress in your career, it's a lot more different. But in order to bring more of that diversity, it needs to start at the university levels and really push companies that they need to hire different than how they used to hire in the past.
And I'd like to add that diversity is not always just like men, women. It's also like diversity from what university are you hiring from? Where are you going to recruit? Is it always the same company? Is it always the same universities? Or are you always picking the same mindset? So, and for instance, when Massiel was explaining about her being hired, I mean, I experienced the same thing when the Schlumberger came to me. I had no engineering background. I came from marketing. I didn't know anything about drill bits. The only thing I did that checked the box was I drove a truck. So they knew I knew how to drive a truck because I rode horses growing up. So they were like, okay, she can drive a truck. She played sports, so she must have some sort of team, check the box there. Sure, we'll give you a shot. But what they found out was, since I did so well in the field, the thing that happens with companies, to Massiel's point, unconscious bias and biases, is they immediately think then, okay, we tried this, it worked. We had a girl, she played sports, so then therefore maybe if we hire more girls who play sports, they'll fit. So it's a take and give, but the opportunities that quotas do provide is that right there, was they took a chance. And then they realized, okay, maybe these are the kind of personality sets that I need in order to know that they can make it in the field, or like they will enjoy it. It's not just making it, it's also the person that they employ in that position, they enjoy it. We want you to come in and feel like you're a part of it, not come in and meet a quota and then, it doesn't work out because you didn't like it to begin with. So I think those things are very important to set those expectations in the beginning.
Yep, you're right. So based on your experience, what challenges does women face in the energy industry? And if you can give us example on your challenges and how did you overcome them?
So I would say it varies depending on geographies. I will say that because I've heard a lot of different stories from just different geographies. both Jamie and I had a career in North America, so we want to preface that. I think it is rougher in other parts of the world where they aren't as educated yet or as used to having women on location or, in the offices. And so for North America, I would say 10 years ago when I started, you would go into the rig floor and there was, naked pictures of women in calendars, and the keychains were, women on poles. And so the industry when I arrived was very, it was very male and very women were sexualized, let's say. And so when I arrived, I never said anything because I felt like I'm just in their world. And so I should just need to be quiet, and I'm just here to work, but this is how it is. And so I never said anything, and we just kind of progressed. I think things have changed a lot. Companies are a lot more stricter in terms of professionalizing the industry when before it wasn't as professionalized. I would say some of the issues that we face as women is just when you're the only one in the room, it's harder to get the buy-in. It's harder for them to think that maybe what you're saying is worth it, because maybe they aren't as open to listening from other voices that don't look like what they're usually used to. And then also there's always the talk about when women want to have children and how that takes a toll on your career. Just because you have to be out for a few months or for a year, depending on what country you're in. But at the end of the day, I think we're coming a long way in making things better. Jamie and I both have daughters. She just turned 2 and mine's about to turn 2. And I think we're better off than 10 years ago for the women who had to go through it with very little maternity leave, almost no help. Now companies are starting to put daycares. They're starting to have paternity leave. So, we're going in the right direction. But yes, women still face a lot of the typical, they steal your idea, they don't ever give you credit. It's true that men get management roles way before women do because we are judged differently. Has Jamie done this before versus does Jimmy have potential to do this role, even though he's never shown that he's done it. So there's still a lot of those unconscious biases and in ways that women are moving up in their careers. But it's possible. And I think we're all kind of just pushing the boundaries a little bit, and it takes all of us to keep pushing them. But yeah, I don't know if Jamie, you want to add on challenges.
Yeah, what I'd like to say to a lot of what Massiel mentioned is it's not that those kind of feelings and biases and things that are going on is not just in the energy space. I mean, women feel that in all different sorts of in the workplace. I mean, you can see it, you can go and you can read articles about it. It's not just energy. That's just we're trying to evolve as a country, as a world, and make it more of a place where women can feel included. And we see a big push from that, all the way from government putting in place, things for around paternity, maternity leaves, and we know how important that has become, and we're evolving as a world to do that. But when in energy specific, I mean, what I'd like to kind of change it to is the positive things about really being a woman in the space, because that's why Massiel and I connected so well, is because we had such amazing opportunities, because honestly, we are women in energy, because we are the minority on the table, because that is important. My sales career, the reason why it was so successful was because they remembered me, and and I came in and they knew who I was because I didn't look like the rest. And so what Massiel did as well in her role is you build a reputation around who you want to be, and they remember that. I can tell you a lot of conferences and events that we go to, there's a lot of men. I get confused on who is who because they all look the same. They're all wearing suits. They all maybe have hair, maybe not. Sorry. Okay, well, as you get older, it seems like people bald quickly. But, it's like they all look the same. And it's very hard to be like, okay, who was that? Was that John, Tim, David? I can't remember who he worked for. But women, I know. I'm like, oh, look, there she is. I know her. There she is. Oh, look, you stand out. And so that just breeds a huge opportunity for us. I mean, you can come in and you can create who you want to be seen as and who you want to be known as. And when that happens, you get asked by the market to come and you get amazing roles. I got multiple opportunities because they knew who Jamie was, because it was like, obvious when I was at places, since it was all men and I was the only woman in all my sales teams. So I would like to just say, like, there is a huge opportunity for that. And Massiel as well, the way she thrived in the field. I mean, think about that. Think about, you being one of 100 and you thriving in a space that no other person is in your age group or your minority group. You're going to stand out. And I think that we need to look at that as an advantage standpoint and really trying to change the message and not say, what challenges do women have, but like, what challenges do we have that we can create into a really great positive way of looking at it and use that as an opportunity. And so I just like to kind of add that to it, because although there are these things that we do face, I don't think that is just in the energy space.
Yeah, exactly. So since you brought the maternity and family, what are the challenges that you can face, and how do you manage to balance between work and family?
Yeah, so I wish I had a magic recipe. One thing is everyone is going to do things very differently. Everyone's going to have a different maternity leave. Everyone's going to have a different, even just pregnancy journey. Everyone just has everything different. So it's really hard to compare and look at other people and how they do it. Maybe take a few things that inspire you from different people and then make it your own, because everyone's literally going to have different things. One people will do daycare, other people will have a live-in nanny, other people will have no help. And so what's worked for me is I have help. My mom stays with me, which is, I know, rare. But she helps me. If my mom wasn't here, I wouldn't be able to be successful in my career, because having a child takes up a lot of your time and energy. And that's how I've been able to be successful, is I can kind of delegate the motherhood task. I think what's my biggest challenge of, having a young daughter is that it's easy to forget the work-life balance, because I'm so consumed by not only flipping the barrel, but my full-time job and just everything else that's going on, that you kind of put sometimes your child and your family on the back burner. And then sometimes you might put them on the front burner, but then your career is so it's always like a constant challenge. I will say the hardest thing for me now is when I have to travel for work, let's say. And I feel like when I come back, my daughter is a little bit more like, who are you? Not that who are you again, but like more connected to maybe my husband and my mom than me. And then I have to kind of rebuild the relationship with her to be like, no, I'm here all the time. So I think that's my biggest challenge as a mom, is feeling the mom guilt of like, she doesn't care when I leave now, or, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And I mean, I mirror Massiel. So my experience though with my daughter is a little bit different, as we do Montessori. And I don't have anybody that helps me at home per se. My husband and I, we divvy up the chores when she's at the house. And it's hard though, because to Massiel's point, we have flipping the barrel, and we have our day jobs. Flipping the barrel usually happens at night. And so we always try to arrange time that is around, like, if my daughter's asleep, or if Massiel has time and her daughter maybe is being taken care of from her mom. But both her and I have to manage that, and it's not easy. But everything that is hard always comes with some sort of sacrifice, but also comes with the benefits. So I would say that it's really helped our time management skills. It's really helped us prioritize. Her and I have really decided, like, we're going to prioritize like what's most important and do those things first, because you can't do it all and you can't always say yes. So I'd say one of the biggest lessons that we've learned is we can't say yes to everything, because what ends up happening is it overwhelms you, and then you just feel stressed. And then the things you're saying yes to aren't fun anymore, because you're like, I should have been with my daughter. I wasn't with my husband. I'm now working, 18 hours a day because I said yes to all these extra activities. And so it's really prioritizing that time. And as far as, the leaving part that Massiel mentioned, I would say that's the hardest struggle. And I really feel that it's only with women. My husband leaves, and he I feel like he doesn't even have that feeling. And it's just like, oh, see you later. I'm home late, and I think that's, as much as we talk about mom guilt and as much as we wish we could erase it, I think at the very core of who we are, it's just not possible. And I think everybody will always experience that, but it's like, how can you manage it, and what's best for you? And so what I have found is when I leave, I really like to keep it at minimum time span as possible. In my mind, I'll even say, okay, well, I'll take the flight really late at night, so then I can at least put her to bed, and then I'll leave, and then I didn't miss that day. but it's a lot of that in your mind of like, how can I make it work? And these periods are so short, you know, you feel like you were gone for 2 weeks when really it was like 4 days. But, you know, it's just managing that, and then managing the time when you get back to just make sure that, you know, you do spend time with your children, and then you have the weekend and you do spend time with them. One thing that advice that I always was given is when you do leave, come back with something. And I know that seems, you know, everybody has a different opinion on that, but I do recall growing up when my parents would leave, they'd always come back and bring me something small, and no matter what it was, like a little stuffed animal, candy from wherever they came, and it excites them. It's like, okay, well, mommy's leaving, but she's going to come back, and maybe, you know, what is she going to bring me? And then it associates it with a positive versus like always it being like, oh, mommy's leaving, she's gone. It's like mommy's leaving, but when she comes back, you know, what might she bring, or what, you know, what is going to happen? And so I think leaving your children to wonder some like that kind of helps a little bit, but they're really, honestly, there's no real cure for mom guilt. And we've learned that on the podcast as well, as the multiple stories that you hear from all the women. And before we get off this topic, the one thing I'll leave everybody with on this is we have heard from those that are their kids are now out in school, and they're, you know, not little anymore, that the things that the moms worried about the most when they were small, like not teaching them to ride a bike, or, you know, not going on the first picnic with them, or little things like that, that the mom felt like super guilty for. As the child aged, you know, one of our guests went back to their daughter and was like, you know, do you remember when Sally taught you how to ride your bike? And the daughter was like, Mom, I have no idea what you're talking about. And so that whole time she felt this guilt of not teaching her daughter how to ride a bike, and her daughter doesn't even remember. So I think that some of that stuff is kind of important to just realize that some of the things that in the moment hurt you the most are not going to be as impactful on your child's life as maybe you think today.
Okay, great advice. Thank you. So what are the most important skills and qualities for success in the energy sector, and how can you as professional develop them?
I would say it's really important to be a people person, because at the end of the day, any business is people. And so if you're good with people, you're good at understanding people, you're self-aware of how you are interacting and how people perceive you, that's super key. Something that isn't taught as well, but I think is crucial, is networking. You never know who you're meeting. You never know what kind of first impression you're leaving. So really working on those skills of the elevator pitch, like they call it, is crucial. Because you might be walking into the CEO, you know, walking by him in the hall, or at, who knows, he came to speak at, you know, at the university. So just always be prepared that you never know, because a lot of the stories that we've heard, or even in our own journeys, it's always one or two key people that you meet in your life that change the trajectory of your career, of your life, of a business that you start. And so it's crucial to just really know how to use those relationships and evolve. And then of course, be very good at your job. And if you want to go into a specific career and go back to school and do a master's or a PhD, that's also very crucial. It really depends on what realm you're going to fall in the industry, whether you want to be very technical, you want to innovate, you want to have a lot of you know, schooling behind you, or you want to go more into a sales role or marketing, which is a lot of, you know, people skills. So it really depends on which area you want to go to. But networking, I would say, is this number one skill that you need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would base, honestly, what Massiel said is exactly what I would mirror her exact answer. Networking, communication skills. You know, we do hear, and I don't speak to a ton, like one-on-one of college students, because we usually do like talks like this, but, you know, I read a lot, and they say like communication skills are getting more difficult because social media and the way people talk. And so I think what's important is to just ensure that it's great for you to have this image on social media, whatever it might be perceived as, but when you show up in person, that's really gonna depend on your career, on like who you become in your career. You can be perceived as one thing online, but if you don't act that way in person, you can't communicate, you can't talk, you can't ask for what you want. in person, then I think that you're going to struggle. And so it's really important to just have those skills. And even if they have the opportunity at the university that you're at, get into a presentation course, a course where you go in front of people and you present. I think that that's a really important skill. And no matter what happens with technology, I really don't think it's ever going to go away. You're always going to have to present your ideas. And if you can do that and articulate, then you're going to be successful.
Okay, so it's more of soft skills than the other technical ones.
Unless to that point, I mean, if you're going to be an engineer and then technically, yes, you need to be technically sound. But I will tell you, if you're technically sound and you're an engineer and you can communicate, oh my God, the world is your oyster. That is like the two most amazing things. Because in today's world, you usually have like the talker, like a me, and then you've got your tech person around with you, because I wouldn't know the depth of that person's knowledge. But if you have both, oh my gosh, you're like a force to be reckoned with.
Okay, we'll work on that, I think.
Yeah.
So the next question is, we would like to hear from you 2 success stories of women who have succeeded in the energy industry and what contributed to their success.
So we picked as one of our top 2, and you should go listen to her episode. It's linked on www.flippingtheworld.com. Her name is Regina Jones. She's the Chief Legal Officer of Baker Hughes. And her story is just fantastic, of just the amount of challenges that were thrown at this lady from like early career to now being a C-level executive in a big, Fortune 500 company, not only as a female, but as an African-American, which is, very small percentages of Black women make it to C-level. So the fact that not only in energy, but with all of the challenges that she faced early on, it was just so inspiring for us to hear. Early on, she had a brain tumor right at the beginning of her degree when she was studying law. And then she just faced many issues along the way, from having children to a miscarriage to just premature babies. I mean, anything that you can think that would break somebody, not only personally, but you would just give up on your career because you have so much going on at home that you need to handle. The fact that she just elevated her career and climbed the corporate ladder she's incredible. And I would say that she says a lot of what she owes this to is perseverance, never giving up, taking challenge by challenge, turning it into positive mindset of, okay, I have a brain tumor, but this means that now I have more time to do X. And so it's how you look at things in life. And her partner, which is her husband, who they've been together for 30 plus years since she started her career. All of us need someone, whether it's a spouse, a friend, a parent, somebody that is there, that goes through all of it with you, the ups and downs. And she said that she owes a lot of her success to him. And so that would be our first one. And then Jamie, if you want to mention our second female.
Yeah, so we've had her speak at multiple events because she's just so phenomenal. And what she's overcome and did was just, I can't even explain. So you have got to go listen to Kim McHugh. She is the head of drilling and completions for Chevron. And she has dual career. Her husband works for Chevron as well, and he's very successful. He actually reports to her at Chevron, which is a very interesting dynamic. They have 3 kids. She traveled the world. At one point, she gave up her career to follow her husband. I believe it was like in Singapore or somewhere in that region. And for 7 years, she put her career on the back burner, where she only worked like 4 hours a day as a contractor while her husband's career thrived and she took care of the kids. To then find herself back in Houston, where she got the opportunity to take this role with Chevron. And what was really, really incredible about what she did is, and we talk about this a lot when it comes to women in roles, is that when she was offered the role for D&C, joint completions for all of Chevron, she turned it down because they had told her that you need to be there at 6 a.m. You have 6 a.m. phone calls. And she's like, no, I'm not going to do that. I drop my kids off in the morning. So thank you, but no, thank you. And she said no. They came back 3 months later and were like, Kim, we have a job for you. And she's like, okay, what's the job now? And they're like, well, it's the drilling and completions for all of Chevron. And she's like, I told you, like, I'm not going to do that. And they said, well, Kim, we want you to come and we want you to do it your way. And so what was really important about that was the change that Chevron made to be like, you know what, we're going to be inclusive. We're not going to make you do what your predecessor did. You're going to come in and we want you to take the role on how you want to take on the role. And we want you to give you the opportunity. And she's been one of those really amazing success stories about overcoming many challenges, having a child late in life too, and having 3 children, dual career. And she didn't do nannies for the beginning. She had like daycare, and she talks about how she juggled it. And she talks about mom guilt. I mean, she is your ultimate resource, is Kim McHugh's podcast and all the events that we have had her at. So highly recommend that one as well.
Such an inspiring stories. Yeah, we will definitely check it after. So now let's see if we have any question from the audience, maybe. So the question is how you faced any discrimination or bias in your academic or professional career as a woman in the industry.
Okay, so I would say when I left the field and I went into a sales role, because of just how maybe some females had done sales in West Texas, which is a specific area in the US, I was labeled maybe as a female that was going to sell the same way. And so when I would show up to visit customers, I think there was a lot of bias of course they put this girl as sales because she's cute and she's going to get me to buy her things. And when in reality, no one saw that I worked for 5.5 years in the field, that I'm an engineer. There's a lot of, I think, just people didn't see that, like all of the hard work that I've done. They just saw, oh, here's this cute little face that's going to come sell me some stuff. And so there was a little bit of that, like, I find like a little bit of, just, it didn't feel good as a professional to be labeled like that, or to feel like all of the things that I've done were really just, no one would see it. They would just see something else. And how I handled it was just being super professional. And when you know what you're talking about and you could talk in the same terms as them, technology wise, with math and science, with the right formulas, you prove them that you're smart and that they might think that you're not just because of how you look or because you're a girl or whatever, and you just prove them wrong. And so that's probably the thing that I love to do the most. Is people underestimate me a lot until I can prove them wrong with just the knowledge that I bring. And so I would say that's probably one of the biggest adjustments that I had to do in my career was after I left the field.
Yeah, and I'll give an example of this too through my career. There was a time where I went and met with one of the managers at an E&P company to sell him some downhole drilling tools. And I came in with papers because I had spec sheets. I wasn't going to read off of them. I just had them to give to him. I sat down in the room and he grabbed them from me immediately. And I was like very irrationally, just grabbed them as I sat down. I was like, okay. I was like, well, hi, hi, I'm Jamie. And nice to meet you. Just grabbed everything from my hands. And he was like, so tell me, what's the specs for the drilling motor? And I just started writing everything off. I didn't have the papers because I wanted to read off of them. I had them because I was going to give them to him at the end. And I will tell you that he challenged me with so many questions, but I came in prepared, and I gained respect from him and sold the job. Because the thing is that, to Massiel's point, you do get underestimated. But in my experience, when you show that you have the knowledge you deserve to be there, they respect you 20 times more than any guy who walks into that door. And I had found that throughout my experience. Now, there will be caveats to this, so will be times where they just won't. But I will say that the biggest challenge, but you can use it, like I said, as a positive, is the underestimation. If you come in knowing, or at least you might not know, but you always can find the answer. They respect you and they know that you're the go-to person. Hey, she might not know today, but I know she's going to get me that answer in a few hours. And when she does, it'll be the right one. And as long as they can trust you, you build tremendous relationships. And so I do think that we still have that today, the underestimation piece. But I do think that we're overcoming that a lot, and women are doing a really great job of showing up, and companies are preparing us for that. So but that would be the only, it's not really discrimination. It's more just they challenge you a little bit more.
Okay, just one small question. Are you still facing these challenges in the past years, or it's really at the beginning of your career?
I think it's always going to be a little bit of that
Okay.
until we educate the masses, right? But I think right now it's still very male dominated. And so women, unfortunately, you have to prove yourself way more than a guy in a role. And so I think we still face that also because we're young. That's also something you're going to face, even as a male, just younger seniority. Do you really know what you're talking about? Da, da, da. They're going to challenge you the same way. And so I would say we still face that, but you could quickly turn it around once you start proving yourself that you know what you're talking about or that you
And
deserve to be there. You know, you were hired correctly for that role.
Yeah,
I think too,
unfortunately.
it depends on what company, because in oil and gas, we do have E&P, we do have private equity, we do have small companies. You're never going to change their mindset. They really don't have to. They do well. They have their 10 people and that's what they do. But then you've got your big IOCs and stuff, and you're not going to see this near as much there. And when you're selling or working with them as a service provider or working as them with engineering, they have a bunch of resource groups. They have things around that. You're not going to see it as much as you would have a few years ago when Massiel and I first really started in the industry, and there wasn't as much focus on it.
Okay, so unfortunately, it's like basically the same. We are still in the same stigmatics. So, yeah. For the next question is, how do you envision the future of engineering, and what contribution do you hope to make to the industry as a female engineer?
I think just with the energy transition and just a more balanced planet, which at the end of the day we all want, there's going to be a lot of contributions made on new technologies. And so if you're studying engineering, definitely go into anything that has to do with sustainability, carbon capture, geothermal, all of those new energies and just helping the planet. That's where all of these companies, both service and operators, are going to be focusing on. And that's where they're going to be hiring a lot of, because we need innovation. We can't keep doing what we've been doing for the last 100 years in the industry. And so that's what I envision. A lot of that, a lot of AI, a lot of, you know, just things that we probably don't even imagine that are going to be doing self-driven trucks to location. There's already the rig of the future where there's no personnel on location, just drilling oil wells. I think that's really where the future is headed. Unfortunately, is cutting people because it is safer, because it's a very, you know, unsafe environment at times. There's a lot of things that can go wrong. So really removing and adding safety to the equation. So anything working on robotics, there's just so much of a future of engineering that's still left to innovate. What we would like to contribute, you know, as females in our industry, I think what Jamie and I have decided to focus on is just showcasing those careers, showcasing that you can be part of this amazing career and amazing industry. And that's kind of the legacy we want to leave behind, is just making sure there's a seat for everybody at the table.
And to that point, what Massiel was making on innovation, it's also innovating like this artificial lift and all of the things that are in our daily production and completions that we do today, as well as drilling. We need your mind, we need your engineering mind to come in and look at what we've done for decades and be like, there's a better way and there's a cleaner way in what we're doing today. And I think some of that starts with what Massiel was saying is, you know, we really want to showcase the opportunities that you can have in this industry. And we're going to be adding some of that to what Flipping the Barrel is doing on a job board, which we'd love to get y'all's input on once we have it. But to that point, there'll be opportunities on there for you to work in the field. And although you might be thinking, well, that's not energy transition, it's the field, that is where it's all going to start. We need you in those roles. We need you to understand at the basis level what's going on at the field, and use your engineering expertise to come back and be like, hey, you're doing this and you can do it way quicker, way cleaner. I have this idea. I mean, there's so many ways to innovate, and companies are really, really wanting that. They want you to come in and give your advice so that you can have an impact on what we're doing today. Have that be traditional oil and gas, or have that be the energy space, transition space. We need your mind, and we need you to come in and give us new ideas.
Okay, so I guess we have someone who raised hands. Noor?
Hey, good afternoon. Can you hear me and see me?
Yes.
Hi.
Hi. So it's Noor. From Lebanon. I'm also a part on the board of the SPE student chapter. So my question is to you, Massiel. Okay, so it's more related to maternity. I have 2 points to discuss, but I'm gonna first go to the maternity part. So you said that sometimes when you used to go travel and sometimes when you used to go back, your daughter didn't recognize you sometimes, kind of. So did you feel guilty at that point? I mean, did you sometimes think that you must have spent more time with your daughter, and how did you deal with that?
Yes, very good point. So I'll start with my maternity leave. In the US, at least for the company that I work for, we had 6 months of maternity leave. I decided to only take 3 months off. And so I wanted to come back to work earlier. I'm just very driven like that. And I remember everyone telling me, you're going to regret it. Stay, they grow up so fast. You're never going to have those moments back. But I didn't want to listen. I was like, no, I need to go back to work. I need to work on my career. And looking back, yeah, I do wish I stayed a little bit longer at home, because you close your eyes and they're grown-ups. Like, it's scary. And so I think it is important that, yeah, you should be ambitious in your career, but maybe like, sometimes you think that because you take 3 more months off, it's gonna change your entire career, and it's not. Sometimes, like Jamie mentioned with Kim McHugh, she took 7 years off. We've had people on the podcast that took 1 year break, 2 years break, and guess what? They're still CEO, they're still VPs, they still made it very high in their careers. So I think it's important to think, maybe in this moment right now, I should focus on being a mom, because at the end of the day, it's not going to change anything in the moment you think it is. And so I think that's one point. And then now as she's getting older, and like I said, on the last trip, she was a little bit like, you left for a week or whatever. I've spoken to a lot of people that had moms that were very focused on their careers, and they grew up thinking so highly of their moms. Like, wow, my mom works so hard. My mom's climbing in her career. And they look up to you as just, wow, they travel for work. I want to be just like my mom. And so sometimes I think it's hard now that they're young where they don't express that. But I've heard a lot of positive things from people who've had very, busy moms. And they say, no, you think it's negative, but they look up so much to you versus, just staying home all day. And so that's what I'm hoping it's going to be, is that I'm going to instill that in my daughter. She sees that being busy in my career makes me very happy, and she sees a happy mom. And I think at the end of the day, that's what I want to pass down to her. And I think that's what kids look for. That's what Jamie mentioned with, like, you create them part of your career. Mommy's going on a business trip. Wow, mommy's going to be doing X. You kind of incorporate your kids into your career so that they think it's positive versus, oh, my mom's not here, she's a bad mom. So it's really up to you to, change the storytelling, because they'll believe anything you tell them.
Okay, so I just had one other thing to say. Okay, so we're really enjoying the talk, and I don't know if you've heard about it, but we as the SPIFP School Student Chapter have already initiated a podcast. And as a part of diversity and inclusion, we already had a session that's dedicated to Women's Day. So I'll ask Wissam to put the link here so that you can review that. And so we really liked your answers. So we just thought about having your answers in our podcast. So we will be promoting your podcast and having your answers in our podcast, if you don't mind. So
we love it.
Yeah,
yes,
of course.
feel free.
Please reuse the
yeah, thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I had one last question, and then maybe we could end the event. We spoke of quotas earlier. So what's your opinion on them? And do you think quotas actually have an impact on diversifying the workplace and making it more inclusive?
Yeah. So my opinion on the quota piece is, and Massiel kind of pointed this out when we were talking about it earlier, was the quotas are good for meeting numbers. So if we're just looking at numbers, quotas really do help with that. They give opportunity to maybe They make people think more about who they're hiring versus just hiring a safe bet. A safe bet would be somebody who looks and done the role before, looks similar. Hiring somebody completely different is a little bit more worrisome for companies. And so sometimes a quota is needed in order to push them and to make them feel like it's okay. Like, let's try things new. Like, let's pick new people. Let's pick new universities. Let's all of that. But what it doesn't do, and we talk about this a lot on the podcast, is it doesn't bring an inclusive environment. Just because you hire women or you hire minorities or you hire younger people, whatever it might be, it doesn't mean that ultimately your culture just changes with it. That really happens from the inside. So you have to also instill in the management that you have that they are pushing down the values of the company to create that environment. And that is where we are really at today in the energy space, because a lot of people are meeting their quotas. They're meeting the diversity number that they might have set, but they're not meeting inclusivity where people are staying. And so that's one thing that we really try to drive on the podcast and all of the initiatives that we do with Flipping the Barrel with our events and everything, is to bring to the forefront the issues that are making people leave and not feel included. And so we really want to change that narrative and really make companies think about the inclusion part and making them feel a part of what they're doing versus not, and feeling excluded from events, etc., that the company puts on.
And I wanted to add one thing on quotas is that at the end of the day, it's a business. It's not a charity. And so nobody is hiring somebody that they really think cannot do the job. It's not like, for example, they're going to pick a vice president of $1 billion company, let's say, and they're going to say, quota, we just need a girl. We're going to put her there. No, nobody's going to take that risk of like that $1 billion business. Sure, they're going to look at a maybe more diverse team, but at the end of the day, they're going to pick someone that they really think can do the job. And so the negative connotation on the quotas is sometimes we think people are getting jobs just because they're a female, but it's not because they don't think that they're good enough to do that job. It's a business. They're not going to put some girl that has no idea what she's doing and is incapable. Nobody's going to take that risk. We're all on the stock market. We all need to make money. And so I think it's just a different way of looking at it. And quotas, I think, are very important early on in that bringing in women. But then at the end of the day, it's to you to deliver. For the last 10 years, I just haven't been a quota and like I'm just getting jobs because I'm a girl. It's because I have to deliver on every job that I do and do very well at it and deserve the promotion. But do I think maybe 10 years ago when they were trying to bring more women into the industry, I might have just been a number? Maybe. But I think it's important because maybe they would have never hired me. And so it's really just like a two-way street of looking at quotas. And yeah.
Okay, so I guess we have one last question, if you don't mind.
Hi. So my name is Abdallah. I'm in the IFP board here at IFP School. So first of all, I'd like to thank you all for coming today. I think it's been a really great session, and I want to tell you that first of all, you have a lot of impact because I did my undergrad in Southeast Asia, in Malaysia, and I remember my classmates who are female be like, "Hey, do you know this girl?" You know, and then they would show me your pictures and be like, "Oh, do you follow their podcast? Do you follow what you do?" And I think it's good to send some positive vibes to know that you guys, what you're doing, also it's reaching a large impact, not only in the US, because sometimes when you're in the US, you just think that in the US bubble, but just know that it's going very far and it's having a large impact. And myself, one of my mentors is Mervin Azeta. I'm sure you know her. She's a SLB. So I interact with her a lot. So I had a question which are kind of interlinked and one other question. So here at IFP, we are also seeing in the student chapter itself, we're seeing that we have a decreasing number of engagements. It's really hard to bring people to come to events, either virtually or physically. And also, you know, the energy transition, or in Europe, you know, how people view us, like, especially in Europe. In the US, it's a bit more diluted. But in Europe, we walk on the street, you say a petroleum engineer, and, you know, everything just changes. And some questions that I used to ask myself, oil and gas is going to be there in the next 30, 40 years. So how are you going to address the talent gap, you know, which I think is going to be there? And if there's a talent gap generally, I think it might be accentuated for women also, you know, because if we have less people want to go to the workforce, we'll have less people going in the workforce, while in the industry, we know that we still need oil and gas. So I just wanted to project the experience we have in the chapter and on a global level and see what you guys think. That's my first question. And my second question, how did you guys jump in from the idea of a podcast to the implementation stage? And it's more technical, like how did you grow up? What was your process? Did you just like, okay, I'm gonna post on Spotify and let's see what happens? Or did you think of a process as an engineer? Did you think of the gates before you studied it off? So yeah.
Okay, well, I think we'll start the questions backwards because that's just
Yeah.
the easiest one. Podcast, just did it. We didn't think too much into it. We never looked at our numbers as well. I think it's very easy to fall into this episode didn't do well. We didn't have followers. No one's going to our website. We didn't look at that for the first maybe 3 years. Like it's only recent that we're like, oh, okay, now we're looking into the data. But we never did it because we wanted followers, because we were just passionate about it, and we decided to start it, whether we were going to reach one person, that we were going to change, inspire one person or thousands. And so I think that's why it's been successful. It's just because it's genuine and it's really like our passion and what we wanted to do. And so all we did, truthfully, we went on YouTube and we Googled like how to start a podcast. Gary Vee, which I'm sure a lot of you know, had a segment on how to start a podcast. And we followed it. We ordered what he showed as like the best little Zoom recorder, a mic, headphones, literally like not a lot of money. It doesn't take a lot. We went on Amazon and we bought it and we just started. I interviewed Jamie interviewed me. We started with what we had. We didn't do very well at the beginning in terms of even how do we post, how do we do a website. We just kind of learned as it went. And so we always tell people, if you want to try something, don't think too much into it. Sometimes as engineers, you're like, ooh, this is going to be this and da, 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 da. And we get so analytical that it blocks us from acting because the data isn't good enough and we don't have enough information for this, just try it out. It's not the end of the world if it doesn't work out. And so just test things out. It would be our advice.
And to add to that, to like being so critical of yourself too, you really got to let go of that, because you will never post something if you are like, there's times where we post stuff and like the audio maybe wasn't exactly how we wanted it, but it was a really good episode, so we just went with it anyways. Or even sometimes when we post clips and you'll see it on our Instagram and everything, like we probably don't look the best in that clip, but we don't care. Like it's not about, we let all of that go. We try not to be critical of ourselves, because everything that we do is a learning experience and it's not always going to be perfect. And so if you go in not like searching for perfection, I think you won't be so let down if maybe, it didn't come out exactly how you wanted it, but you still are doing it. It's the process of doing it. And as you continue, you'll get better and better and better, and things will change, but you've got to start. And then on your first question, that one's very important to Massiel and I, as the whole reason behind the podcast, as we said, was to shine a light on the industry. And, and what's difficult about that is to get that person on the street that doesn't like petroleum engineers to listen. But what we can do is just educate. And in order to not have this gap that you were discussing is the education piece. And so one thing that we started was Fun Frac Friday, which every Friday we post an educational piece on what oil and gas does and how it's helped the world. Have that be through the computers that it creates, have that be the medical devices, have that be, just the money that the oil and gas industry brings to each economy. It's all about educating. And what we're also trying to do is educate companies to educate. So like, what I've seen more in North America is there's actual like commercials now on like Shell showing we power the world. It's all about how we create that messaging to get people to understand what we're doing and not feel so negative about it. Because in the past, we never had that. And that's why all these individuals don't understand what we do. And so we're really, really far behind on this, but it's something that we are definitely aware of and the industry is aware of. And so we're really, really hoping to fix it, as soon as we can, but it might miss a generation and then it'll eventually pick back up. But getting feedback, like what you said, is really important to us, to Massiel and I. So if anybody in the chapter has feedback, we'd love for y'all to email us, because we're very interested in this topic and how we can grow, the overall positive message of the industry. So our email is flippingthebarrel@gmail.com. So please reach out, let us know, give us tips on what you think or what you're facing. And we'd love to help you through whatever challenges that y'all have.
Great, thank you. Just one last tip. I know we're short of time, but recently I attended the Aspen Institute Climate Summit in Miami Beach, and it was a petroleum engineer in a room full of climate activists. It was a bit difficult, so I think it will be great if you can one day to bring climate activists in the oil and gas sectors that you exchange, because when I was talking to them, I understood the gap that we have, because I'm in one spectrum and they're in the other spectrum. We never communicate. They just go for strikes and we keep drilling. So there is that big disconnect that there is. While we all want the energy transition, we all want a balanced planet, as you said, right? So I think trying to bridge the gap between those two will be very critical, as we all want the same goal at the end of the day. So yeah, that will be my small tip.
So I'll give you a task. That's our email. Find someone that you think would be worth coming on the podcast, and we'll interview them to understand their gaps, and we'll publish it. Deal?
Let's go.
Do
Awesome.
it.
Guys, I have another meeting
Yeah.
that I'm already 7 minutes late to, but it was really great being here, and feel free to email us at any time. Jamie and I are both very accessible, and thank you for the invite again.
Yes,
Thank you so much for your talk.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
joining us.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Yeah.